Hi, I'm John Stevenson, and we'll be looking at the ark in Genesis chapter 6, verses 14 through 16 in our continuing study of the book of Genesis. Genesis 6:14 starts off, "Make for yourself," this is God speaking to Noah, "make for yourself an ark of gopher wood. You shall make the ark with rooms, and shall cover it inside and out with pitch." Now that word ark is from the Hebrew word, actually it's an Egyptian loan word, tiba is the Hebrew word. And it's the same word that's used for the ark into which baby Moses is going to be placed. Now, it's not the same word that's used of the Ark of the Covenant. That's a different word. That's on Aaron. But this tiba, it describes not necessarily a boat, but a chest, a structure. Might be a real big structure like the one here in Noah's day, or it might be a little tiny structure that could fit one baby. But it's a box, a chest, a holder, that's going to be constructed for the safety, in this case, of Noah and his family. The ark is to be made of gopher wood. Now, you say, well, what's gopher wood? I've never heard of that. And neither have the translators, because what they did is they looked at the Hebrew word, and the Hebrew word here is gopher. That's the kind of wood that's mentioned here. And they weren't sure what that was, so they didn't know how to translate it. So what they did is they transliterated it. They just took the Hebrew word and put English letters on it and gave us the Hebrew word there, gopher. That's some sort of wood that was used. They were to make the ark with rooms, and they were to cover it inside and out with covering. The same word there is used. I'm not sure that I like pitch, except that it's some sort of covering that went over the wood. So I guess pitch is probably correct, even though it's not linguistically there. The word koper is the same word that you have for the day of Yom Kippur, the day of covering, or the Day of Atonement. I guess it's a bit of a stretch to translate this. You will atone it inside and outside with atonement, but you will cover it inside and outside with covering. And this is how you will make it. The length of the ark was to be 300 cubits. Now, of course, that brings up the question, what's a cubit? And a cubit was the length from your fingertip to your elbow. So roughly that's around 18 inches. Of course, that depends on how big the person is that's doing the measuring. But the ark was to be 300 cubits, so if that's 18 inches or around there, it's around 450 feet, and its breadth 50 cubits, so do the math, and that would be about 75 feet wide, and its height 30 cubits, about 45 feet wide, or 45 feet in height. And that's the dimensions of an ocean-going barge. I used to work in a seaport, and one of the things that I saw all the time was barges coming in and going out. And when they were fully laden, they were very, very seaworthy. Not a lot of rocking or tumbling. Even in the midst of a storm, they were able to weather that nicely. You shall make a window for the ark, and finish it to a cubit from the top. Now, translators have wondered, what does that mean? And here we have an artist's conception of one idea of how that's being read, that a window that maybe ran the length of the ark, although it doesn't say that, and set the door of the ark in the side of it, and you will make it with lower, second, and third decks. Now, 1 Peter speaks of the ark and the flood. 1 Peter chapter 3 and verses 20 and 21, where it speaks of the patience of God, how it kept waiting in the days of Noah during the construction of the ark, in which a few, that is, 8 persons, 8 souls actually in the Greek text, were brought safely through the water. And corresponding to that, baptism now saves you. You see, there's a sense in which there's you look at the story of the ark and the story of the flood, and that pictures what we go through when we are saved, not by entering into an ark, but by entering into Jesus and being identified with him. And just as you could say water back in the Old Testament, the water was a water of judgment and took away all of the impurity of that which was upon the earth to cleanse the earth. So likewise, we've gone through a baptism as well, but it's not just getting wet that does anything, not the removal of dirt from the flesh, but an appeal to God for a good conscience through the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And so when we look at Noah, it's appropriate for us to also look at Jesus. You see, when there's a correlation between Noah and the ark and Jesus. In the ark, all the flesh, all mankind, was to be destroyed in the flood. And in Jesus, we come to him realizing that all mankind is under condemnation. The ark was designed and planned by God. That's what we've seen in those verses just now. And our hope in Christ was designed by God before the world began. Ephesians chapter 1, verse 4. Noah's part was to build the physical structure of the ark. And in the case of Jesus, he was born of a human mother. He became flesh. He became one of us. In the case of the ark, God made known to Noah this plan of salvation. And in the case of Jesus, God made known to us, both through the prophets in the Old Testament and now through Jesus himself and through his apostles, he's made known to us his plan of eternal salvation. Noah believed in the Lord, and it was counted to him for righteousness. Now, those words are said elsewhere of Abraham, but we read in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 7, that by faith Noah received salvation, and we must also believe in Jesus as the Messiah, as the Christ. The ark only had one door, and Jesus also is our door. He is the only door to salvation, so that we must come to him if we are going to be saved from future destruction.